see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave.
Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated. Today we experience one of the oldest and most tradition-rich ceremonies in the United States Air Force. This ceremony honors members as they retire from a long and honorable careers in the service of their country. To the retiree, this ceremony is one of the most important events of their military career. In celebration of this event, the members' co-workers and friends host a formal retirement ceremony keeping with the customs and traditions of the Air Force. Our retiree will leave with a tangible expression of appreciation for their contribution to the Air Force and its mission, and with the assurance that they will continue to be members of the Air Force family in retirement. It is with great pleasure that we recognize Master Sergeant Jason Vonnick's accomplishments this afternoon. At this time, I would like to introduce the 381st Intelligence Squadron's Director of Operation, Lieutenant Colonel Select Reginald Wesley. Sir, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Like you know, the reason we're here is for Sergeant Vonnick. And you know, this morning we just had a promotion ceremony. 2 brand new lieutenants, you know, made first lieutenant. And then now, at the end of the day, I think it's fitting. We're recognizing Sergeant Vonnick for all the things that he's done, serving his country, all 20 years, 11 months, and 13 days of it. He's working on the hours and the minutes. But he has had an extraordinary career. I've gone through all his EPRs and all some of the notes that he had written for him, and it's amazing how, you know, how bright of a star he was throughout his career, and not just, you know, not just in the middle or at the end, but throughout. He has definitely been an example for everyone to follow. And I've got a couple things of just some of the things that of the words that were written about him. And this is you know, the beginning of his career as an airman, Airman First Class Jason C. Vonnick, 450th Intelligence Squadron, Royal Air Force Chicksands. Far exceeded that technical expertise that far exceeded that of his peers. Was remarkable for someone of his rank and experience. It's an A1C, and you know, it goes on to say that he had the experience of a non-commissioned officer. And you don't see that young. And something else, greatly exceeds national standards and was the best of 4 operational crews. Another one, set a standard of excellence resulting in 0 discrepancies during the Air Force Cryptologic Office's first ever unit compliant inspection. And this is just one thing after another. And one of the biggest things that stood out wasn't even an EPR or an award. It was actually just an email that someone sent about him, and it was a copy of his step promotion to tech. And it said he was selected as #1 AFCO nominee. He ranked 1 of 40 headquarters AIA staff level competition, and then finished 1 out of roughly 120 eligibles. Combined, headquarters AIA, AFTAC, AFIWC, and NAIA, now NAIA. I mean, just sustained excellence. And you know, I'm sad to see you go, because that's exactly what, you know, what we need for our young airmen, is someone to look up to, someone to say, you know, I want to be like that. And so, so with that, you know, like I said, I've gone through everything in his records. The only kind of little mark that I saw on his records was he's a Raiders fan. That was all I could find. I guess you can't help that. You probably hear that a lot more. But anyway, with that, he wanted me to keep it short. So I will, but I just wanted to say thank you. Thank you from the squadron, from the AMOC, from the Air Force.
Ladies and gentlemen, please rise for the declaration of presentation. Attention to orders. This is to certify that the Secretary of Defense has authorized the award of the Defense Meritorious Service Medal, 1st Oak Lake Cluster, to Master Sergeant Vonnick. Master Sergeant Jason C. Vonnick, United States Air Force, distinguished himself by exceptionally meritorious service while serving as non-commissioned officer in charge of mission assurance within the Signals Directorate of the Alaska Mission Operations Center from December 2009 to August 2012. During this period, Sergeant Vonnick led 40 airmen prosecuting the unit's intelligence collection and reporting mission in support of 7 combatant commands, 8 allied nations, and multiple Department of Defense agencies. His team proactively tipped unprecedented strategic indications and warning operations to the United States Northern Command on 11 occasions, which helped maintain air sovereignty and receive the direct attention of the President of the United States. Additionally, Sergeant Vonnick's leadership was critical to real-time threat warning support of an American reconnaissance vessel and 3 Navy carrier strike groups, safeguarding more than $19 billion in assets and over 12,000 lives. Lastly, he facilitated the hiring of 24 airmen into special access programs, expanding skill sets of junior operators. The distinctive accomplishments of Sergeant Vonnick culminate a distinguished career in the service of his country and reflect great credit upon himself, the National Security Agency, Central Security Service, the United States Air Force, and the Department of Defense. Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated. Major Wesley will now present the retirement certificate. Certificate of Retirement from the Armed Forces of the United States of America, to whom all shall see these presents greeting. This is to certify that Master Sergeant Jason C. Vonnick, having served faithfully and honorably, was retired from the United States Air Force on the 1st day of September 2012. Signed, Colonel Dirk, 3rd Wing Commander, General Norman A. Swartz, Air Force Chief of Staff. Major Wesley will now present the Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force certificate. The achievements and contributions you have made throughout your career were indicative of the core values of our great service. I hope the years ahead are filled with more great memories and continued success. Sincerely, Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force, Roy. And now the Presidential Certificate. Master Sergeant Jason Vonnick, I extend to you my personal thanks and sincere appreciation of a grateful nation for your contribution of honorable service to our country. You have helped maintain the security of the nation during a critical time in its history with a devotion to duty and a spirit of sacrifice in keeping with the proud traditions of military service. Your commitment and dedication have been an inspiration for those who will follow in your footsteps and for all Americans who join me in today.
Hell yeah.
He was hoping I could arrange one of those, but we just got fortunate that we were. In saluting you on a job extremely well done, my best wishes to you for your happiness and success in the future, signed Barack Obama, Commander-in-Chief. Now, a letter from the Commander of the 3rd Wing. I'd like to wish you congratulations on the occasion of your retirement from active duty service to your country. Let me express my sincere desire for your continued success as I join with you and many of your friends at the 3rd Wing in wishing you and your family all the very best. Sincerely, Colonel Dirk D. Smith, 3rd Wing Commander. Master Sergeant Vonik has also received certificates of appreciation from the Director of the NSA, Washington State Governor Christine Gregoire, California Governor Jerry Brown, and the mighty Oakland Raiders. In the interest of time, these have been displayed on the gift table to the right of the room. Captain Ippoliti, will you please come forward and present a gift from the Analysis and Production Flight. The U.S. flag within the shadow box was flown over the Oakland Raiders headquarters in Alameda, California.
Funny.
That's awesome.
Petty Officer Pete Van Roon, please come forward and present Master Sergeant Vonik with a special retirement gift on behalf of the Canadian Forces Detachment.
Yesterday I was given a hint. The hint was moose milk. Too bad. You may open it at will. We were talking about cheesy gifts a few weeks ago. Couldn't get any cheesier than this. You make it hard, don't you? This looks like a Raiders toaster.
Mr. David Snow, please come forward and make a presentation.
I wore the uniform for a reason. Fred's a big Tom Brady fan. About 11 years ago, that's when he had that little game, something along those lines. So then he wants to be like everybody in the league. Got his own personal Brady jersey.
Oh.
But on the back,
Do it. Yes. Thanks, Dave. It's a conspiracy.
Every retiree receives a special retirement pin as a memento of their active duty service. At this time, Sergeant Vonik's daughter Willow will place the pin on his lapel to symbolize his transition from active duty to retired status.
I have to help. Jessica.
Master Sergeant Vonik will now present gifts to his mother Stephanie, his sister Jessica, and his daughter Willow.
All right, so first gift here I have for my mother. She wanted one thing upon retirement. She wanted a United States flag. I went a little above and beyond and got almost the biggest flag I could find. So this is for you, Mom. It's got my name and service dates, as you can see. If you'd like to come up, we'll get a nice snap picture of it. So my mom's been kind of my best friend for really life. Every time I come home pretty often, again, as we all know today. I've been doing this for a long time, many, many years. Come home frequently. Every time I come home, it's a blast. Usually pretty wore out by the end of it, and thankful to get back to work. So we'll see what happens when I come home full time now.
I'm sure we'll rock it.
Yeah. But just thanks for everything. All right, next we got my sister here. So Jessica, if you could come on up. This is a piece of my military career that I wanted you to have. These are military challenge coins. I had to travel the globe, obviously, to get these. Not even my entire collection, but these are some of my absolute favorites. Most people in here should know the story behind the challenge coin. Like Senior Master Niker found out a couple weeks ago, it certainly pays if you don't have one on you. But again, I just would love you to have these and just display them in your home, and this is my piece of my career that I want you to have. And I love you, my sister. Okay, now for the rub rat, as I like to call it, my daughter will. Come on up, kiddo. So first thing I have for her is this it's a military child manual. I'm going to attempt to read this, so bear with me. Dear Willow, throughout the years of your life, you made sacrifices and served your country as much as I have done. In your loving way, you quietly shouldered the heavy burden that you were asked to carry. Most of the time, you could not understand why I was not there, but you quietly hid the tears, courageously put on a smile, and defiantly promised that you would support me. You were there then, as now, one of the most important parts of my life. And it was your love that enabled you to assure me that what I was doing was important. I missed many holidays and countless special occasions due to work. While you were left at home to worry about what I was doing, you had to say goodbye to friends on more than one occasion, moved you to several different schools throughout our life, but your resilience and self-confidence throughout those frequent moves gave me strength. I'm proud of you, for it was your love and support that has sustained me through these difficult times. There's no way in my mind that I could have been a success in the military without having your support, your understanding, and most importantly, your unquestionable love. So, let's hold on to the side there. We'll get a nice picture for you. All right, one more piece to that. This is the medal here that that presentation comes with. Please take it. Smile for the camera. Okay, so that was a serious gift. Did get something else for you, so you can stick around. I don't know if anybody saw the pictures that were kind of rotating as we were walking in. I grew up in Southern California. I was kind of a surfer skater kid. Willow's kind of taken after me a little bit, I believe. So I hooked her up. It's a brand new skateboard. Had all, hold on to it there, give it to me. And with it comes a very special note that I wrote not too long ago. Why don't you read that? Read it out loud. That's the day she turns 18. So there's a very special message in in here for you, and we're going to hang on to this, and every year from now until this day, you know, you'll be wondering what's in here. And on your 18th birthday, we're going to open it up. And have it full. What I said, back on this day. All right, get 'em? All right, I love you.
Sergeant Vonnegut, throughout your career, you have always faithfully served one thing, the United States flag and all it represents. Unit members will now perform a time-honored flag floating ceremony.
For more than 200 years, the American flag has been a symbol of our nation's unity, as well as a source of pride and inspiration for millions of citizens. Born on June 14, 1777, the Second Continental Congress determined that the flag of the United States be 13 stripes, alternating between 7 red and 6 white, and that the Union be 13 stars, white in a blue field, representing a new constellation. Between 1777 and 1960, the shape and design of the flag evolved into the flag presented before you today. The 13 horizontal stripes represent the original 13 colonies, while the stars represent the 50 states of the Union. The colors of the flag are symbolic as well. Red symbolizes hardiness and valor, white signifies purity and innocence, and blue represents vigilance, perseverance, and justice. Traditionally, a symbol of liberty, the American flag has carried the message of freedom and inspired Americans both at home and abroad. In 1814, Francis Scott Key was so moved at seeing the Stars and Stripes waving after the British shelling of Baltimore's Fort McHenry that he wrote the words to the Star-Spangled Banner. In 1892, the flag inspired Francis Bellamy to write the Pledge of Allegiance, our most famous flag, salute, and patriotic oath. In July 1969, the American flag was flown in space when Neil Armstrong planted it on the surface of the moon. Today, our flag flies on constellations of Air Force satellites that circle our globe and on the thin flash of our aircraft in harm's way in every corner of the world. Indeed, it flies in the heart of every airman who serves our great nation. The sun never sets on our innocent, nor on the flag we so proudly cherish. Since 1776, no generation of Americans have been spared the responsibility of defending freedom. Today's airmen remain committed to preserving the freedom that others won for us for generations to come. By displaying the flag and giving it a distinctive fold, we show respect to the flag and express our gratitude to those individuals who fought and continue to fight for freedom at home and abroad. Since the dawn of the 20th century, airmen have proudly flown the flag in every major conflict on lands and skies around the world. It is their responsibility, our responsibility, to continue to protect and preserve the rights, privileges, and freedoms that we as Americans enjoy today. The United States flag represents who we are. It stands for the freedom we all share and the pride and patriotism we feel for our country. We cherish its legacy as a beacon of hope to one and all. Long may it wave.
Major Wesley, the time has arrived to make this official. Sir, request permission to publish the orders.
Publish the order.
Ladies and gentlemen, please rise. Attention to orders. Department of the Air Force, Washington, D.C. Special Orders Number AC 002229, dated 6 December 2011, states Master Sergeant Jason C. Vonick, effective 31 August 2012, you are relieved from active duty, organization, and station of assignment. Retired effective 1 September 2012 per AFI 36-3203 in the grade of Master Sergeant, having performed 20 years, 11 months, and 13 days of active service. Proceed to your home of selection by order of the Secretary of the Air Force. Please be seated. Ladies and gentlemen, at this time, it gives me great pleasure to introduce for the very first time, Mr. Jason C. Vonick, United States Air Force, retired.
That's pretty intense. Wow. I've been waiting this day for a very long time. When I first knew I was retiring, I struggled with, what do you say exactly to cover 21 years of service? Well, I couldn't figure it out, so peace. Just kidding. So let me start with thank yous. Thank you for everyone coming out today, helping me celebrate the close of my career. Thank you for everyone that was involved behind the scenes. Senior Master Sergeant Brandon, I think I put in to work for sure. Thank you, Lieutenant Colonel Select Wesley, for your kind words. Airman Flores and Airman Savell for the flag folding. Thank you to the genius authors of the FY12 Force Management Program for making this day possible. I'd like to thank my mother and sister for making the trek up to Alaska to be here today. The last time I gave a speech like this in front of my mother was when I graduated high school as salutatorian and talked about joining the real world some 21 years ago. I'd like to thank my Uncle Rudy, who couldn't be here today. He was single-handedly the inspiration for me joining the Air Force. And I'd like to thank my daughter Willow for just being totally awesome. I love you with all my heart, and I hope you remember every second of this day. Wherever you are, if you're still out there, I'd like to thank Chief Susan Douglas, who I never saw again after my first assignment, but I never forgot her because she changed the course of my career. My time in the Air Force can be cut into two very distinct chapters. So we'll start with chapter 1, which is titled, I Am So Great. I started out at RAF Chicksands, a site very much like this one. Those of you here today who only know me from this assignment would probably find it very hard to believe, but in the first half of my career, I was completely gung-ho. I was the young airman that you love to hate because I was very cocky and I was very good at what I did. I wanted to be the best technician the entire world had never seen. I wouldn't settle for anything less than being #1. Technician of the month, tech of the quarter, tech of the year. I got all that stuff. Thrived on it, loved it. I used to write my mom letters telling her how great I was and how the unit couldn't survive without me. That was hard work, by the way. Back in those days, I really had to handwrite those things, put it in an envelope, stick a stamp on it, and then a week later, she could open it and read about my greatness. I sent her all my certificates and would gloat about my total domination. But the fact is, I was pretty good back then, and people did notice. While Chick Sands was closing at the end of the Cold War, I drew an assignment to Fort Meade. Promptly started complaining to anybody who would listen about how mediocre that was, and I wanted to do something far better, and can't somebody get me out of this crappy assignment? Chief Susan Douglas listened, and she set me up with an interview with a guy named Digger Odell, who ran a special access program called Sensor Cobalt, and man, did that sound cool. So I interviewed with the guy, and he loved me because I was so great and all, and he hired me, and thus started my career into space. Digger got me out of going to Fort Meade and sent me off to Korea. I arrived in Korea just a couple weeks after Kim Il-sung died, and Pyongyang was threatening to turn Seoul into a sea of fire. My first day on the base happened to be the start of an exercise, so everybody was walking around in chem gear, and F-16s and A-10s were dive bombing the base. So needless to say, I thought it was going to be a pretty long year. But I loved Korea. I loved every second of that assignment. I worked side by side with Air Force Space Command folks in a little tiny van overlooking the flight line. I got to learn about their neat little toy that they have and the neat things that they could do with it, so I felt pretty great that I even knew about that stuff. So I figured after Korea I'd stick around this special program gig a little longer, and I continued in the program at Misawa, Japan. That's when I learned something very important, and everybody please pay attention. If you serve a career in the Air Force, you will undoubtedly at some point have a job that really sucks. That was my first time in Japan. I hated that job more than any job I had in my whole entire career. It was very boring, the schedule was horrible, I wasn't challenged at all, and I just completely hated it. But I was very great at it. Anyway, after that assignment, I figured I had enough of Digger's program, so when he offered to send me to his gig in England, I kind of told him to shove it, because I knew exactly what they did there, and leave me alone and I'll take what the Air Force gives me. So, free of protection from the special program, the Air Force took over, and I was magically whisked away to Fort Meade. So because I had a space background, and there's a lot of different offices one can work at Fort Meade, I ended up working with our own stuff for a guy named Greg Bussey. Great job, loved it. I was working with civilians and the other services for the first time. I racked up a few more awards and made staff sergeant. Because I was feeling so great at the time, I wanted to move into mission management, but was denied. My division chief, Don Lindeman, gave me a political reason that I didn't understand back then. But I wasn't used to taking no for an answer. So I promptly filled out my dream sheet with every single assignment I could possibly go to. And sure enough, drew orders to go back to Misawa. After I obtained those orders from Misawa, I walked into Mr. Lindeman's desk, shoved the orders on his desk, and said, "There you go, Don, not concur that." Back to Misawa I went. My second time at Misawa, I ended up at the 301st, certifying as the Chief of Satellite Systems, and I ran that whole operations floor as a staff sergeant for 3 years. One of the highlights for me during this tour was the day this crazy fighter pilot from an adversarial nation decided to play mid-air bumper cars with one of our local Navy EP-3s, resulting in a well-publicized international incident. It was April Fool's Day when I came into work that night, and obviously I thought it was a joke, because that wasn't something that you typically received at a shift change briefing. Besides handling that event, did a lot of other great things there, racked up some more awards, because that's what I was about back then. And also got my trial by fire being an NCO during this assignment. I had more subordinates that I knew what to do with. I had to learn how to counsel people, how to praise people, all the administrivia that comes to being a supervisor, all the prowess it takes to deal with personnel issues and having to hear people's problems and how to fix things and all that good stuff that I know a lot of you know all about. It was a great assignment, but that would be the end of Chapter 1. The Air Force decided at that point I hadn't got enough of Fort Meade, so they sent me there again. And this began chapter 2, titled, I Will Hook You Up. This time, I was assigned to the Air Force Cryptologic Office, working for Mike Schmansky and Kathy Flores in the Feature Plans and Programs Division. This is a staff position, working at headquarters element in a cubicle farm. Think office space and TPS reports, you get the idea. Now, because I had been so great up to this point, they put me in for a step promotion, and I got it. Instant tech sergeant, no testing necessary, thank you very much. I figured that was my peak, so I did what every senior NCO will tell you not to do at that point. I completely let off the gas and went into cruise control. And I sat there, staring at my computer, waiting for some email to hit my inbox that I could possibly provide some kind of insightful comment to. After a while of doing that and not feeling very productive, I asked my bosses for some kind of real work. So they made me a special program manager of an Air Force unit down in Australia. I was going to hook people up. And that's what I did. I did all the recruiting, screening, hiring, and processing of all Air Force persons assigned to that site. I put butts in seats. AFCO even sent me to conferences so I could advertise that I put butts in seats. They made me a business card that said right on it, I put butts in seats. They even sent me down there, which was the best TUI I ever had in my whole entire career because I had no responsibility whatsoever other than to just check it out so I could tell people about it. Great job. The other thing I learned during my time in AFCO was politics. I mastered the art of email. I learned the art of the CC, the art of the BCC, how to read between the lines, how to basically tell somebody they're an idiot without blatantly saying they're an idiot. I even made sure I put that little VR on my signature block, so that if I did have to tell somebody they were an idiot, at least I did it very respectfully. After a couple of years of working in the office space, I decided I had enough of that gig. And because I ran an assignment program, and because I had connections in the assignment world, wouldn't you know it, I found myself in beautiful Hawaii next. Funny how that worked out. When I arrived in Hawaii, there was a vacancy in day staff for a branch chief in a space-based section, working directly for the division boss, Robbie Leffler. Now, I knew Robbie already because we served in Japan together, and because I had a space background and had just left a staff job and could tell somebody they were an idiot if that's what they needed to hear, guess who got the job? They said this job requires travel. I said, cool. They sent me to conferences every year so I could talk about all the great things that the people who were working for me were doing. First time they did this, they sent me to Denver, and I ran into a guy, Chris Thibodeau, who had recently left that little unit in Australia that I used to manage. So over the course of a few beers, we figured it would be a great idea for me to send all my people to hang out with his people for a week to get some orientation. I get back to Hawaii, I pitched the proposal, I secured a funding line and a spend plan, and over the course of the next 4 years, I sent probably 20 kids to Denver for a week-long orientation. I was completely hooking them up, and they loved it. Then I came here. Never in a million years would I have touched this place. Life had a funny way of happening to me along the way, and this is where I'm wrapping it up. I knew this would be it for me the second I got here, so before I punched, I wanted to spend some time talking story, telling young airmen about the rest of the enterprise, and that there are other worlds out there outside that elephant cage. One day a young kid asked me, what worlds? So I sent an email to an old friend. Next thing you know, the kid gets hired into a special program that he had no idea existed. I changed the course of that airman's career. Guess what? He talked. And it spread like wildfire that I was the hookup guy. And I hooked them all up. I lost count, to be honest. I think the award said 24, might have been 25, 26, 27 hirings of 381st Airmen that I got into special programs. And over my last 3 assignments, I've sent airmen, sailors, soldiers, and Marines to places all over the world. I've ended my career being Chief Susan Douglas to probably 75 kids out there. Someday, years from now, one of those kids is going to get up and give a speech like this. And they're going to say, Sergeant Vonak, man, that guy changed my career. I couldn't be happier with that, and I think that's a great way to sign off. I've met so many good friends in the Air Force it would be impossible to acknowledge everyone, but I am going to give a special shout out to the former Master Sergeant, now retired, Billy Kreutz. Billy and I had the same TI in boot camp. We went to tech school together. We both went to Chick Sands. Both got assigned to dogfight, and we were roommates in Easy Dorm. One day after our last mid, we worked the old 12 and 3 schedule back in those days, so nobody better complain about the schedule you're working. One day after our last mid, we decided to start partaking at about 7 o'clock in the morning. We were young and stupid, and that's what we did in those days. So we're playing shot a minute, and then lo and behold, the fire alarm goes off. So we grabbed our stuff and sat outside on a picnic bench next to the bowling alley and continued our game. Now in the 10 minutes or so it took the fire department to give the all clear, we sort of got attached to this picnic bench for some reason. And we decided to take it back up with us to the 3rd floor of Easy Dorm. Seemed like a pretty good idea at the time. A couple days later, we even had Master Sergeant O'Grady, who was the Chief of Security Forces, in our room partying with us. And even he thought it was cool. Well, after a few days, naturally, as you can imagine, it started getting in the way, so we figured we'd better put it back. Turns out, getting it down seemed like it was going to be a lot more difficult than it was to get back up there. So we waited till 2 o'clock in the morning, we propped the picnic bench up on the ledge and just chucked it down the dorm. But it was great because it was quick and we got the whole thing on videotape. A few years later, Billy took a tour of being an instructor at Fort Huachuca. And around this time I was on my 2nd assignment at Masawa, where we got a lot of pipeline students. One night I got this kid working for me, a new guy. So I decided to strike up some conversation with him. I knew he had just came from Huachuca, so I asked him who his instructor was. He said, Sergeant Kreutz. And before I could even get out that, oh yeah, I know that guy, this kid starts telling me my own story of the flying picnic bench at RAF Chick Sands. I guess Billy liked to tell that story too occasionally. So here's to you, Billy. We made it. Way too many other good stories to tell. I'll forget some people for sure. I wanted to give thanks and praise though to Floyd Easley, Danny Roque, Rich Trevelyan, Brad Jones, Ron Hogan, Ty Presley, Jeremy Bueno, one of my disciples from Hawaii. Jeremy helped me brief the Vice Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff one time. That was really cool, by the way. Mr. Dan Yeckley, Jerry Rizzo, Keith Thomas, and anyone else I've ever met and served with over the course of my career. Thank you to all of you. It's been a hell of a ride.